Tonight at 11.
If you make yourself more than just a man, if you devote yourself to an ideal, then you become something else entirely. A legend, Mr. Wayne.
It's not about money. It's about sending a message. Everything burns.
Or you think darkness is your ally? You merely adopted the dark. I was born in it.
Hey, welcome to the Cutting Room Floor podcast. I'm Alex.
And I'm Erik.
And tonight we're going to talk about the Christopher Nolan Batman Trilogy. Real quick, before we get going, we have an email address that you can reach us at. It's the Cutting Room Floor podcast at gmail.com. You can find us on Twitter at Cutting Podcast. And then on Facebook, facebook.com/the Cutting Room Floor podcast. And on our Facebook page, you can find links to where you can find us on iTunes, Podomatic, and everything else we just mentioned. So last time we talked about the 5 Batman. I almost forgot 66.
Yeah.
The 5 Batman movies that had come out between 1966 and 1997.
97. Yeah.
And the rise and fall. And tonight we're going to talk about the Dark Knight trilogy. So, what do you think?
First off, not to sound cliche, but thank you, Christopher Nolan, for giving us the Batman we not only needed, but the one we deserved.
Yeah, no kidding. There's been a lot of talk about like this being like the perfect, I guess, kind of trilogy, or at least kind of since the Lord of the Rings trilogy, Yeah. I don't personally know about 100% perfect, but at least as far as Batman is concerned, and I'll address that point later, but as far as like one person's vision and direction, it's pretty close, I think.
So. I think so too.
So should we just dive into Batman Begins? I think we're just going to do the same thing we did last time: pros, cons, things that we like. Because I mean, as much as a little bit of a disclaimer, we both really, really love these 3 movies.
Yeah.
But I mean, objectively, there are things that work and some that don't work as well. I think we're going to try and address those things kind of like we did with the last 5. So, yeah. Do you want to talk about what you liked first, or?
Yeah, I'll go ahead. For me, when I saw Batman Begins, like I mentioned in the other podcast, my first introduction to Batman was the animated series, and also '89. But my big introduction was the animated series in the '90s. And when I saw Begins, I just thought to myself, holy smokes, this is like the 90s cartoon brought to life. This is the way Batman should be. This is the way Jim Gordon should be.
He's actually competent.
Yes, exactly. He's actually competent. I also loved it that, they have villains that we hadn't seen before.
Yeah, that's true.
When I found, I was sitting there and one of my friends was, before the movie came out, he was giving me some information, he'd been looking up some information on it. And he's like, oh yeah, they're going to have Jonathan Crane in there. And I was like, wait, Jonathan Crane? I was like, then it clicked. I'm like, they're going to have the Scarecrow in this? Oh man.
Yeah.
And I think Ra's al Ghul is one of the more interesting rogues in the Rogues Gallery. I mean, yeah, in the cartoon and in the comics he's, Mr. Immortal guy, but whatever.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's... So when I found out they were doing him as well, and when they found out that Liam Neeson was playing him, I was like, okay,
yeah,
this works.
Yeah.
This works. And I had never heard of Cillian Murphy before this.
Right, yeah, me neither.
So when I saw him, I was like, okay, I don't know who this actor is, but he is amazing.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I thought he was really well done in that.
Yeah, and I thought Michael Caine as Alfred Pennyworth. Wow. Okay. This whole cast is amazing. Basically,
Yeah.
Gary Oldman was amazing as Gordon.
He looked like right off the page,
off the page of the comics,
which was kind of amazing.
Yeah, I agree.
And he's kind of like a chameleon actor. You know, he can, like, if you look at him in like The Fifth Element, he's almost unrecognizable. But yeah, just straight off the page, Gordon from year one. It was nuts.
yeah. So I loved the casting. I loved that we actually, for the first time, got to see his origin, Batman's origin. You see him training with the League of Shadows, which, I mean, yeah, depending on your comic continuity, you know, that can be different. But
sure.
I just thought it was nice to actually see him, you know, training, and then of course he implements all the stuff that he learns from the League of Shadows into his, you know, actual stuff.
Yeah.
I
I just want to jump in there. I that was my first point on my little note list. I kind of, when I rewatched this, I was surprised at how fast you go through the whole sequence with his parents dying and everything. It was really quick, but it was really well done. It kind of just shows you the basics of what you need to know, and then, you know, it's over an hour until he becomes Batman. But, you know, you get to see action and how he, you know, trains and becomes Batman, which is really cool because that was stuff that was just almost lightly hinted at in the original movies. So I thought that was pretty cool. So
yeah, and I thought, you know, the villain's plot was pretty cool. The twist in the movie I was not expecting the first time I saw with the whole Ra's al Ghul twist.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I really liked that.
Did you really think Ken Watanabe was Ra's al Ghul, and then all of a sudden he's just dead? Because that's what I thought.
I thought that too. Yeah.
Okay.
I thought that too the first time I saw it.
I mean, I was okay with it. It wasn't anything that was like, oh, okay, well, if that's all we see of him, I'll, you know, have my life shattered. But I was okay with him dying. But yeah, that twist was pretty cool. So.
Yeah, and just going back to the whole like Alfred and Bruce relationship, I think this one clip, I think that really kind of sums it up. Well, at least in this movie. Okay, here we go.
When you told me your grand plan for saving Gotham, the only thing that stopped me from calling the men in white coats was when you said that it wasn't about thrill-seeking.
It's not.
What would you call that?
Damn good television.
It's a miracle no one was killed.
I didn't have time to observe the rules of the road, Alfred.
You're getting lost inside this monster of yours.
I'm using this monster to help other people just like my father did.
For Thomas Wayne, helping others wasn't about proving anything to anyone, including himself.
It's Rachel, Alfred.
Well, we both care for Rachel, sir. But what you're doing has to be beyond that. It can't be personal, or you're just a vigilante.
Is Fox still here?
Yes, sir.
We need to send these people away now.
Those are Bruce Wayne's guests out there, sir. You have a name to maintain.
I don't care about my name.
It's not just your name, sir. It's your father's name. And it's all that's left of him. Don't destroy it.
I've always, when I first saw that scene, I thought that scene was just really awesome. That he's like, you know, he's basically telling him, you're not just Batman.
Right.
You've got to maintain your family's name, you know, which, yeah, you see how it ends, you know, because he's got to keep that his two personas separate. But I just thought it was, yeah, you know, he's basically telling him, like, hey, I'm your moral compass or whatever.
Right.
And don't jump into the abyss too far, basically.
Right, yeah, Alfred really is the kind of grounding force in this movie that keeps him, well, as we kind of find out through the other movies too, kind of keeps him close to reality.
Yeah.
Not going too far, so.
Yeah.
Cool. Did you have any other points you wanted to bring up?
No, I just, I thought, cast was great, crew was great. Wally Pfister is an amazing cinematographer.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, it's true.
And it's just great to actually see things like Arkham. I mean, yeah, you do see Arkham and other stuff, but like you see it.
Yeah, but they did it different. That's one of the points I wanted to bring up was because you mentioned, we saw Ra's al Ghul and Scarecrow, and one of the cool things I think about doing that is they get to avoid comparisons to how things were done in the old movies.
Yeah. Start fresh.
Especially, to start fresh, because I think, people were like, oh, well, who's going to be the Joker? Oh, wait, there's no Joker in this? If they're starting over, well, why would they do that? It just lets you kind of avoid that whole comparison. A couple of things I thought were interesting were, there's so many good things that it's hard to just... one of the things I thought that I appreciated was if you watch the original movies, you can totally tell that the bat signal is projected onto it's either animated in one form or another, or it's being projected onto a canvas screen,
Yeah.
Because you can see it's just really flat, unless they've Gotham's got the flattest clouds in the world, So it's cool that they actually make a bat signal and actually put it on cloud. It's a cool image and it makes sense. The other thing I thought, as far as pros go, and people might disagree with this, but I really don't think Katie Holmes is that bad. A lot of times I've read she's the weak link of the cast, and I just don't think she's that bad here.
Yeah.
I do think it's funny that I think he's been married 3 times, but 2 of Tom Cruise's wives have been in Batman movies, so it's kind of a little amusing thing.
Interesting.
But, I think you hit a lot of the points I had. One thing that I thought was interesting was, the Scarecrow is one of the big villains in this movie, and you don't even see him until 45 minutes in.
Yeah.
And, but we talked about that in Skyfall, how you don't meet Silva until an hour or so in. But here I think it kind of works though too. It doesn't feel like 45 minutes. Yeah. I don't think. No. I think maybe because you've got so much going on with the League of Shadows and you meet Ra's al Ghul and all of that stuff. But you're almost second acting by the time you meet one of your primary villains. Yeah. But it just works, and I don't really know how to explain it other than that I think that first act moves so briskly that you don't notice it, and I don't know how you'd introduce him otherwise though, because it would just kind of interject in the storyline set in wherever Ra's al Ghul is hiding out. It just would break up the narrative. But
I also like how they brought in the mob more.
Yeah, definitely.
They brought in Falcone.
Yeah, because you kind of get that in 89, but it kind of disappears after Joker becomes Joker. Yeah. And then it's never heard of again. Yeah. So and the mob has repercussions and goes into the Dark Knight too. So
interesting thing I read online a couple week ago or so. Apparently Christopher Nolan wanted Heath Ledger to play Bruce Wayne.
I read that. Yeah, and apparently he said he couldn't see himself doing one of those movies.
Yeah, he's like, I can't see myself doing one of those movies.
Right.
Yeah.
Glad he changed his mind, but it's interesting, that's for sure. But I'm glad Christian Bale got the part, because I think we talked in the last podcast how Michael Keaton was a great Batman, kind of an iffy Bruce Wayne, and then Val Kilmer kind of was better, I think at least in as Bruce Wayne, and I think he was a good Batman, and I don't know what Clooney was doing, but Christian Bale really balances the role of both Bruce Wayne and Batman. I mean, he really is playing 3 characters in a way, You know, he's playing the real Bruce Wayne, he's playing Batman, and he's playing the Playboy Bruce Wayne. And, you know, you can even see it when he, the scene in the hotel where he's got the girls and he's all, I'm going to buy this hotel, we're changing some pool policy rules. And then the first time he sees Rachel after he's back, and you see him just instantly switch, and he's like, this isn't really who I am, you know. It's really kind of interesting, so I think. So
Yeah.
So what cons do you have for this?
Wait, there's cons to this
Yeah,
movie?
yeah.
No. The whole microwave emitter thing, that's...
It's really comic book compared to the rest of the movie.
Yes, it's very comic booky compared to the rest of the movie, but hey, it's better than having a giant ice gun.
You know, it's not even the ice gun so much that I mind, it's just everything else.
Yeah.
How do diamonds power that? You know what, this isn't...
Anyways,
we could go on about that forever. But
Yeah.
no, it kind of goes a bit more comic book in that.
which I don't have a problem, because he is based off of
Right, yeah.
a comic book character.
Sure.
What other things?
You know, the one of the things that I thought, it just seems kind of out of character is like when he is in Arkham, and he's trying to escape. Batman, I mean.
Yeah.
And he goes through the cell and he just pauses and goes, "Excuse me," to a couple of guys.
Oh, yeah.
It just seems kind of out of character, but at the same time...
I think it was done for just some comic relief.
Yeah, and the thing, too, about that is it's kind of okay, I think, because it's like he's not a fully formed Batman yet.
Yeah.
You know? But so there's some funny little things.
That doesn't
like
come until the next movie.
Yeah. You know, I watched Begins in a couple of parts because I just didn't have time. And I think the suit is okay. I like the Dark Knight suit loads better. But it's kind of funny because it just... Not funny, but it kind of looks more rubbery rather than armored, you know, in parts. But it's such a nitpicky...
Yeah.
It's such a nitpicky con, you know. I mean,
and this isn't really a con. It's jumping back to the pros, like the batarangs.
Yeah,
they're actual like shurikens. You know, it's
yeah.
like compared to like it's like when I was rewatching the other movies, it's like
they kind of look really goofy.
He whips out this thing that's like almost the size of my arm, and it's like, can you imagine getting hit by that thing?
Yeah. No, and it makes sense that he wouldn't start making these huge, you know, batarang things. It makes sense that they're kind of almost little throwing star things.
Yeah, throwing star things.
It's pretty cool. They put a lot of thought into translating and making Batman more of a real life character. So
yeah,
it's pretty cool.
Do you have any other cons?
Not really. No.
Okay.
It's just a really well done movie.
So what did you think about the ending the first time you saw it?
The first time I saw it, I was so excited because, like, we were talking about in the Skyfall podcast how, like, you know, at the end of Skyfall, I was kind of like, I was disappointed with the movie, but I was excited with
where it could
come next. You know, with this, I was really, really pleased with what I just saw. And my heart was pounding because I wanted that next movie now, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I thought it was cool. And I'm glad that they didn't just go with the Joker again. I'm glad that they, you know, did some build-up first because when you get that Joker card at the end, it's kind of just like, I'm really excited for where this is going to go, you know?
Yeah.
So it was cool. What did you think?
Yeah, I was the same way, you know, like I'm sitting there watching it and like, you know, Gordon starts describing this new villain and I was like, I didn't know who it was. Mm-hmm. I should have seen it coming, but I didn't. Right. And then he hands him the card and he flips it over and you see the card and it's like, I got like goosebumps.
Yeah,
I was like,
it's true.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I want this next movie out
Right.
now.
You know, the funny thing, though, too, is that, like you said, like, you should have seen it coming. Like, I should have seen it coming, too. But I think what they did was they took how, like, you thought of Batman before. Because when I watched this, I was kind of like, you know, because... Yeah, you know, you didn't really know what to expect after the last batch.
Yeah, because I was the same way. When I heard they were making another one, my first thought was, they're making another one?
Right.
Yeah.
And so...
Glad I was proven wrong.
Yeah, seriously. Me too, because, everything that you had was so twisted on its head that, you know, you don't know what to expect, and then you get that teaser. It's pretty impressive. So... Ready to dive into The Dark Knight?
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Cool. Do you have anything you want to preview for us here?
Sure.
All right.
First thing, I think that the whole just... we'll touch on this right now. I thought it was great what they did with Harvey Two-Face.
Yeah.
I thought it was absolutely great, and this clip, I think, proves that they got the character.
Yeah.
So, here we go.
You think I want to escape from this? There is no escape from this.
You don't want to hurt the boy, Harvey.
It's not about what I want. It's about what's fair! You thought we could be decent men in an indecent time. But you were wrong. The world is cruel, and the only morality in a cruel world is chance. Unbiased, unprejudiced, fair. His son's got the same chance she had. 50-50.
What happened to Rachel wasn't chance. We decided to act. We three.
Then why was it me who was the only one who lost everything?
It wasn't.
The Joker chose me.
Because you were the best of us. He wanted to prove that even someone as good as you could fall.
And he was right.
You're the one pointing the gun, Harvey. So point it at the people responsible.
Fair enough. You first. My turn.
Harvey, you're right. Rachel's death was my fault. Please don't punish the boy. Please punish me.
I'm about to. Tell your boy it's gonna be all right, Gordon. Lie. Like I lied.
It's going to be all right, son.
And I just think that scene, it really gets that character right. Just like the whole, he does the whole coin flipping,
right?
Which is,
and he accepts the coin tosses.
He accepts the coin tosses, and I remember the first time I saw this scene, I was like, you know, people have said this is an extremely dark movie, and it is,
right?
No denying that, but like, I thought that this scene was like, I was like, it really, you know, there were other parts that hit me, but like this scene really hit me because it's like, okay, I'm gonna shoot Batman. It's like, now I'm pointing this gun at myself,
right?
And I'm like, okay, he's willing to place judgment on himself, you know, and it's like, and if I remember, I think the first time I saw this, I think like when he realizes it lands heads up, he almost looks slightly disappointed Maybe.
I'll have to notice that next time
I wasn't totally sure. Maybe I was wrong, but it seemed like I noticed that. Like he looked slightly disappointed. Like, oh, I guess I get to live. I guess.
Right.
But yeah. So I just thought, again, the new cast members were amazing.
Right. Yeah. Everybody and their dog has talked about how great Heath Ledger was.
Yeah.
And it's true.
Yeah. It is.
But yeah, everybody, even Maggie Gyllenhaal comes in and she picks up that role and does so well with it.
Mm-hmm.
And even though, like I said, I don't think Katie Holmes was bad, I really wish that we could have just had Maggie Gyllenhaal in both of them.
Yeah.
Warner Brothers dictating that, but and I do think it's funny that essentially she was like uninvited, back for the sequel, but she does really well, and I think that scene before she dies is just so well done, and I never saw that coming. I never thought that she would bite the dust.
Yeah, I didn't see that coming.
I just remember sitting there in the theater and going, "Whoa, that just happened."
Yeah.
So I cannot ever say enough good things about this movie. Do you want to play the next clip? Let's just talk. You can't talk about this movie without talking about how great Heath Ledger was.
Yeah.
In some degree. So let's do that.
Okay, let's do this clip first.
Tell them your name.
Brian.
Are you the real Batman?
No.
No. Then why do you dress up like him?
He's a symbol. We don't have to be afraid of scum like you.
Yeah, you do, Brian. You really do. Oh, shush. So you think Batman's made Gotham a better place? Look at me.
Look at me!
You see, this is how crazy Batman's made Gotham. You want order in Gotham. Batman must take off his mask and turn himself in. Oh, and every day he doesn't, people will die. Starting tonight. I'm a man of my word.
So obviously, since this is an audio podcast, you couldn't see the look that Eric and I gave each other when he screams, "Look at me." But we were talking about this before, and when I haven't watched this movie for a while, and I hear that, I seriously get a shiver up my spine. It's so good. I read something that was somebody saying that the voice is kind of like what he puts on, but then you can see when he gets angry and he breaks that's like the real voice. It's an interesting theory. I don't know if it's true or not, but it's interesting. That frustration just comes out. It's just so. Just from the gut and just horrifying.
Yeah. Another thing I think is interesting about this scene is that he actually, I think Chris Nolan basically just said, "Here, take a camera. You go with the character who's playing Brian."
Yeah, he got to kind of direct those video scenes.
Yeah,
he does. Yeah, and Nolan never does that. He oversees everything. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of there's no second unit on any of his movies. So it's interesting that he trusted him so much with that.
Yeah.
To go for it. We could do probably a podcast just on The Dark Knight and talk about it forever. Here's the one pro that I wrote down. I think it's the perfect Batman story. If you just take it outside of the Dark Knight trilogy, it's the perfect Batman story. I think because you see him working with the police. You kind of see that conflict within the police ranks. Mm-hmm. But you also see by the end, the Joker doesn't let him win completely. You know, there's long-lasting repercussions. You know that after this encounter with him, he's never going to be the same. And then, in the end, he makes this horrible sacrifice for the greater good, you know, where you see him ultimately really at odds with the law. It's the perfect Batman story, you know? That's how I honestly feel about this movie. So, and I think they got the Joker-Batman relationship right.
Yeah.
You know, I think that was the next clip you had, right?
Yeah.
And the funny thing, too, about this clip is this was the first scene that they filmed together. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
It was the first thing that they filmed together. I think they did some scenes beforehand, but this is, like, I think the first thing that Bale and Ledger did together. And it's interesting just how well they get these characters. Obviously Bale, with Batman having done him for a film, but how well they get not just their characters, but the relationship that they have, I think is really interesting. So.
Here we go.
And why do you want to kill me? I don't want to kill you. What would I do without you? Go back to ripping off mob dealers? No, you complete me.
You're garbage. You kills for money.
Don't talk like one of them. You're not. Even if you'd like to be. To them, you're just a freak. Like me. They need you right now. When they don't, they'll cast you out. Like a leper. You see, their morals, their code. It's a bad joke. Dropped at the first sign of trouble. They're only as good as the world allows them to be. I'll show you. When the chips are down, these civilized people, they'll eat each other. See, I'm not a monster. I'm just ahead of the curve.
Where's it?
I have all these rules, and you think they'll save you.
Who's in control? I have one rule.
Oh, then that's the rule you'll have to break to know the truth.
Which is?
The only sensible way to live in this world is without rules. And tonight, you're gonna break your one rule.
I'm considering it.
No, there's only minutes left, so you're gonna have to play my little game if you want to save one of them.
Man.
Yeah.
So any other thoughts?
I just think that, yeah, I agree with you. Like, when I was rewatching this for this podcast, I remember what you said. You said this is the perfect Batman movie, and it literally is. It stands on its own.
Right.
You don't need to see the other ones.
Right. I mean, it certainly builds off of Begins.
Yeah.
But it's, definitely you could just watch it having not watched Begins and totally understand what's going on. So.
Yeah. It's, you know, the story was good, and one thing I thought was really awesome when I saw this in the theater was because of the trailers, I thought the whole nighttime fight in the street,
right?
I thought that was the climax of the film.
Yeah, they throw the semi-flipping thing, and that would like be any other movie. That would be like the climax fight, and it's like in the middle.
Yeah, it's in the middle. So after I see that, I'm like, wait. There's still like an hour left in this movie?
Yeah.
Holy smokes.
Right.
Yeah, I just thought, like, you know, his whole... Yeah, their whole... the two actors really did get the two characters' relationships down, you know, especially in the end, you know, he's like... So this is what it's like when Unstoppable Force meets an immovable object. You truly are incorruptible.
Right. You know what was interesting, and I've noticed it before, and I was watching it again... like, you know, the Joker's been captured, and, you know, Batman is telling him, you know, you've lost, like, this is over, and when he's like, you know, he tells him that the city's shown him that, you know, they're willing to stand up and fight for good, and he's like, until their spirits break completely, and you can just see the look of, like, exasperation on his face, like, the way that Bale is kind of, like, lets out this sigh that's just like, this guy just doesn't get it, you know? And then it's like, oh, no, wait, he doesn't get it, you know?
Yeah, it's... Yeah, that...
Like even when they think that they've won, they've underestimated the Joker, you know?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's... Yeah, there's just too many good things you can
There's
say.
too many good things
you can say about this.
Do you have any cons?
No. I don't. I don't have any cons.
You know, I mean, there's like little nitpicky things like I know some things, just continuity between shots, like you can tell they're different takes that they did.
Yeah.
It's so minimal that it's not even worth mentioning. The one thing that
Joker doesn't have a backstory. No, I'm just kidding.
No, I'm glad about that. I think
glad about that.
That's perfect, you know. The one thing that kind of bugged me was the ferry scene. And
okay.
I'm okay with I love the scene itself, but the on the citizen boat where the guy stands up, you know, to...
No one wants to get their hands dirty. Well,
right.
I'll do it.
And I think the thing... Yeah, he kind of annoyed me because it was kind of, I think, a little heavy-handed, but... Mm-hmm. Other than that, they just kind of went over some points that they talked about a couple minutes ago. But all in all, it's like 3 minutes out of, you know, 152 minutes or something. You know, it's like, it's so... minute that it doesn't matter. Like there really are almost no nitpicks I have or cons for this movie. So before we jump into Rises, what did you think of the change of because the one thing that people always talk about is the Bale's Batman voice.
Okay.
What did you think about that? I mean, because it changes from Begins to Dark Knight. It's more gravelly in Dark Knight.
Yeah, it's a lot more gravelly, which I don't have a huge problem with it.
Right.
But yes, I was one of the many people who were like, wait, what did he just say?
Oh, okay.
Like, I didn't understand.
See, I never
Hockey pad.
Hockey pad. I guess maybe the first time I saw it, and for me, a lot of times the first time I see a movie, I just have, you know, you're trying to take in everything that's going on. Yeah. You know, that it's hard to catch everything that's done or said, but, you know, on subsequent viewings, I never really have that problem. But and I actually, it's a choice that I like. I like what they did with the voice.
I do too, just because, you know, he's trying to distinguish himself.
Well, and it's really like animalistic. If I saw a guy dressed as a giant bat and was chasing after me and talking like that, I'd probably be horrified too. You know, so I don't know that we've ever talked about that. So
where were the other drugs going? No, it's it's. I don't have a problem with the gravelly voice.
Me either. Cool. Well, do you want to lead us with a clip from Rises?
Sure. Clip from Rises. Alrighty.
Oh, you think darkness is your ally? You merely adopted the dark. I was born in it, molded by it. I didn't see the light until I was already a man. By then it was nothing to me but blinding. The shadows betray you because they belong to me.
So we waited 4 years for this movie.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, what... Oh, just overall, before we do pros, cons, because I've got some of both. But, what did you think overall of this tying together all three movies?
I liked it. I think it tied up the trilogy nicely.
Right. I agree.
The way that, Nolan would have it end.
Right.
You know, I thought it tied up nicely. I also have some cons with it, but,
sure.
It's, for the most part, it's, I liked the way it...
Okay. See, I think... I got through an hour and 45 minutes of this, and it's not because I couldn't keep watching it. Well, it was because I couldn't keep watching it, but because of time limitations.
Yeah.
So, watching it again and with I kind of had to think of it the way I told myself I need to think of it. Because The Dark Knight, I think, did such a good job of encapsulating what is a perfect Batman story that I had to stop thinking of this as what I think Batman should be and think of it as what Christopher Nolan thinks Batman is. Mm-hmm. And take it, because we talked in the last podcast about how, there's a Tim Burton version of Batman in Batman Returns. And it's a totally acceptable version, I think. You just have to look at it and say, this is Tim Burton's Batman, not necessarily what I think Batman is. And I think with this movie, I had to think of it the same way. This is Christopher Nolan's Batman. It is what it is, and that's totally fine. So looking at it in that context, I like it a lot more. And I actually really, really enjoyed this movie a lot more. I had a lot more cons thought out before watching it again, and watching it in the context of, especially watching all three movies closely together, I have a much more favorable opinion of it and enjoyed it a lot more. So, what pros do you have?
I thought that it's nice to see a different interpretation of Bane.
Yeah, on the silver screen.
Yeah,
that was actually one of the points I had. He's actually a character and not a mindless buffoon who bombs.
Other pros, I liked how, as far as the continuity of the story goes, you could see that, this lie that was built up.
Right.
How it was it caused Bruce to basically be, well, and also with just fighting the Joker in general, it caused him to basically be a hermit.
Right.
You could tell that it was affecting Gordon.
Yeah.
So much so that he almost says, I need to resign.
Right.
At the beginning of the film.
Right.
Because this is all a lie for these past 8 years.
Right.
I loved Anne Hathaway as Selena Kyle. Mm-hmm. Holy smokes. She got the... Oh, she knew
who she was playing. It was like we just talked about with Bale and Ledger knowing their characters. She knows who her character is, and she plays her to a T.
Yeah.
I will go on record as saying she's my favorite thing about the whole movie.
Ditto.
And it's not like, oh, she's so hot. No. I mean,
no.
It's you're never probably going to have a performance like Heath Ledger's Joker again, but that's probably about as close as you're going to get to it with somebody who's going to steal the show in that way. Every time she was on screen, I was like, okay, cool, what's she going to do?
Yeah, what's she going to do? One thing I loved was like the first time you meet her, she's got the innocent maid persona going, and then Bruce catches her, and he's like, well, I'm afraid I can't let you do that, you know? And then she just gives him this look and says, and her voice fluctuates.
She changes.
Oops. It's like, ooh.
Yeah.
I like this.
Yeah, she lets the facade go. I also like how when she takes the fingerprints to Daggett's lackey, and the whole thing, when the whole thing goes to where the police come in, and she just starts screaming like she's just this innocent victim. It's so cool how she turns that on, and then when the police go by, she just shuts it off and just
walks
leaves.
out.
It's like she just goes so seamlessly between characters.
Yeah,
it's awesome. It's what I think Catwoman should be. So
yeah, I agree. It's totally awesome. I think Tom Hardy was amazing as Bane.
Right.
I thought the overall story was interesting. Like I said, I do have some cons, but overall I thought it was a nice conclusion to this trilogy.
Right. I agree.
Basically, in my mind, Begins and Dark Knight are perfect 10s.
Okay.
Rises, to me, is like a 9.8.
Okay. Yeah. I gotcha. I agree with everything that you said, basically. I liked Marion Cotillard as Talia, and the one I thought she was good, and so I had this hope out that she wasn't going to be Talia, just because
I did too.
That was just, and I'm okay with her being Talia, but it was just I followed this movie pretty close, and there was the speculation that she would be, and so it was kind of always like in the back of my mind, like, oh, especially like watching it the first time, okay, she's might be Talia, and then she convinced me that she wouldn't be.
Yeah.
And then when the twist came, it was cool, but it wasn't like with Ra's al Ghul, where you're just like, oh wow, I didn't see that coming.
Yeah.
It was kind of like, oh, okay, they did it.
Yeah. I had the same thought.
So I mean, it was okay. It makes sense in terms of the story and what they're doing, but yeah, it was just kind of, it didn't have that same like gut punch feeling that you had,
One scene though that did give me the holy smokes they did it.
Oh yeah.
Happens to be this clip. Where is that? There it is.
Ah, yes. I was wondering what would break first. Your spirit? Oh, your buddy.
So I think everybody watching, going into it, like if you knew, because the Nolan movies have been pretty faithful to the comics. They've tweaked things, and that makes sense for film, but the source material has definitely been revered. I think everybody going into this knew that the first confrontation with Bane was not going to go well.
Yeah.
But I did not think that they were going to go for the Nightfall backbreaker. I didn't think that they would go there, and when they did, it was one of the moments where I was just like, whoa.
Yeah. And I never read Nightfall, but I know the whole story behind it, and I know that panel.
Right.
That famous panel. I was with you in the theater, and when he does the breaking over the knee, I turned to you and I'm like, holy smokes, they actually did it.
Yeah.
Wow.
And the thing is, watching that every time, this time it's coming, but that reaction still just like, oh, that hurts.
Yeah. I thought his voice was amazing.
Yeah, I was fine with it.
I was fine with it. I know it gets a little high-pitched at some points,
right.
But I'm like...
it's kind of like Ledger's turn, though, was, in some ways, it's a performance.
Yeah.
I think when you've got him in the sewers with Batman in that fight, like, that's when you get... Because he does that really deep, like, kind of guttural, those intonations, and then... I think, though, like, when you've got, like, the speech to the people in front of Blackgate, it's more of, like, this is a performance rather than this is who Bane really is,
Yeah.
And that's how he's presenting it. It's really well done.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I agree.
You kind of jumped into cons, and I kind of jumped back into a pro.
No, that's fine.
But, go back to... do you have any more pros, or...?
I'm sure actually... as cool as the Tumbler is, the Bat is really cool.
Yeah.
Like, that's awesome. And
as cool as the Tumbler and the Bat Pod were,
right, like,
the Bat is awesome.
That just tops them. It's so cool. That's like, and I'm not really a car guy or anything like that, but
I'm not either.
You watch that and you're like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
But I think that the overall story is really it's well done. It serves the trilogy well, and it definitely it leaves a door open, but it allows you to continue the story in your mind.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. It's like Inception. At the end of Inception, you've got that spinning top, and does it fall over or does it keep going? Well, it cuts to black. It's up to you to decide,
But unlike Inception, there's about 4 different reasons to prove that Bruce Wayne is alive.
Yeah, that's true.
It's not in Alfred's head, people. I know
Right.
a bunch of people think like, oh, it's all Inception-y. It's not.
Right.
It's not really happening. I mean, yeah. So you've got just. I guess I'll come back to this later. I'll come back to the ending later.
Okay.
Let's jump into the cons first.
Okay. What cons do you have?
Honestly, when I first saw this, I did a marathon. So it was awesome to see all the movies back to back to back. But afterwards, I was really burned out. And I had to see Rises again. My cons, though, I honestly think the wait kind of killed it a little bit.
The wait between movies?
A little, because I was... And along the hype.
Okay, yeah, for sure.
Like, I tried not to get hyped up, but I think the hype got to me a little too much. But that's my own fault. But
right, yeah, that's not really the fault of the movie.
No, but as far as the actual cons with the movies, I also like Talia.
Right.
However, I think her reveal was too late.
Okay.
In the film, I think because it's basically, oh, just kidding, I'm evil. I'm actually Roz's daughter.
Right. I can see that.
And then 10 minutes later, I'm dead. At least in Begin, yeah. At least in Begins,
you kind of have that reveal at the start of the third act.
Start of the third act, yeah. Rather than in the case of Rises, it's in the last.
Right. Yeah.
It's the halfway point of the third act or whatever.
Sure.
I honestly don't have an issue with Bane taking orders from her. I kind of wish Talia had I kind of wish they had played that up a little bit more, like she was trying to get under Bruce's skin a little bit.
Sure.
Like you can, upon second viewing and stuff, like, yeah, she does, but her motives don't seem super clear.
Well, see, that's I think one of the cons that I have is I think in both Begins and The Dark Knight, there are a lot of lengths that they go to explain things, and not like in an overly expository manner, but I think with this they kind of expect you to just fill in the blanks yourself.
Yeah.
To the point where it's like, because like if you think about it, like in Begins they have the whole walkthrough where you get introduced to the grapple gun, the suit, the tumbler, all of that stuff. In Dark Knight they go through and you get to see the new suit, you know what I mean? Here, you've got, all of a sudden when he reappears, he's got this EMP device that, unless you know it's an EMP device, you don't really know what it is or how it does what it does. The only thing you really see is the bat, but the relationship with Bane is similar, some of the things that I've heard are more of like they're conspirators.
Yeah.
So like it's not like that he's necessarily just taking orders from Talia. He's planned this along with her, but it doesn't come off as being that way necessarily in the film.
Yeah.
It kind of the guy that you think is the primary villain the whole time
is the secondary.
Whereas your primary villain in Begins is suddenly revealed to you, and you come to realize you already know him.
Yeah.
I just think there were certain things that weren't explained well.
Yeah.
That just kind of when you think about it, you're like, well, what? I don't quite get what was going on there. And it's not like I want everything laid out for me, but there's a couple of things like that I just mentioned that it's kind of like it would have been nice to have an on-screen, explanation or at least some kind of implication to help, you kind of find your footing with that stuff.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. As far as other cons, that was only one of the real. I haven't seen this movie for a while.
Sure.
Like, that was the biggest glaring was the thing with Talia.
Right.
I thought a lot of people had issues with just the whole what's wrong with the Gotham people. It's like they totally proved in the last movie that, they proved the Joker wrong by saying, yeah, we're not going to blow each other up. We're not like him.
Right.
And people were like, well, then why in the world are they ransacking people and joining Bane's army? And it's like, you're kind of in a no-win situation.
Yeah.
This guy walks in, he's like, oh yeah, you can't leave. I've got a nuclear bomb. And, by the way, this historic Harvey Dent Day and Harvey Dent Act,
right?
It's all a lie.
Sure.
So, I can totally understand. I don't have an issue with it. I can totally see why people are ticked off. They're like, wait, we've been living a lie, under a lie.
Well,
for the past...
and if you think about it too, in on-screen context, like the Joker stuff, I there's no indication given how long it goes, but I can't imagine it being even a month long.
Yeah.
I would think maybe a few weeks. This is the course of 5 months,
Yeah.
You have people probably, getting more and more fed up and decide, trying to choose sides to where...
But it kind of just jumps to it that people are...
Right.
We got our bad guys and our resistance people. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so,
they don't really show it.
Well, and it kind of falls into that other problem that we just talked about, there's just not... at least enough of an on-screen explanation to maybe justify everything that happens. So, but
that's all I've got.
I mean, I think we kind of touched on my biggest ones. I can't think of really all that many. The thing that it's kind of like the bomb device is kind of one of those things that's been used a few times.
Yeah.
I would have liked to maybe have seen a bit more original. The way that they did it, I thought was interesting.
Yeah.
But at its core, it's not.
I have a nuclear bomb.
Right. I mean, it's not.
This isn't James Bond. No,
well, it's just not. It's not necessarily, I think, to par with what we've seen, as far as what we've seen in the past couple of movies.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I think, like you were saying, I don't rate Begins as high as The Dark Knight personally. It's still a great movie, but I think this kind of fits for me more along that level where. In The Dark Knight has I mean, they're based on comics. You can totally expect that, but this is definitely more comic booky than anything I think you see in The Dark Knight. So.
Yeah, and I just like how he, I like how it bookended.
It definitely does.
I loved how it referenced Begins a lot more because a lot of people were wondering, well. Are we just gonna? It's called The Dark Knight Rises. Are we just gonna pretend like Batman Begins never happened?
Right. Yeah. And so I think in a way, I think the book ending is nice, but there's some unintentional things that kind of don't elevate it as high as The Dark Knight was. So,
what did you think of the ending?
I was good with this. So the first time when the bomb goes off, and I thought they actually killed Bruce Wayne, I was furious. I was like, I hate this movie. And in part, that's just because I didn't think that was something that should happen. I think that him making a sacrifice for the people is good, but I don't think he should die,
Yeah.
I liked, in terms, though, of finishing Nolan's story and telling what he wanted to tell, I think that it works, and I'm fine with him, having a life with Selina, and basically finding the happiness that Alfred wanted him to. Mm-hmm. I think that works well. So, but again, and I'm fine with that being Christopher Nolan's interpretation of Batman. I think of the all-encompassing Batman as Bruce Wayne just trudging on no matter what. So.
Yeah.
So, but that doesn't make this interpretation any less valid. So.
Yeah. For me, on the ending, I didn't have a huge issue with it.
Right.
I thought, I wasn't furious that they killed Bruce Wayne. I thought they were like, okay. I'm like, okay. they've been hinting at this the whole movie. He's making the final sacrifice. Right. And the whole point of this movie is to basically be that Batman can be anybody.
Sure.
And it's finally, when Batman is not around in this movie, Gotham finally steps up to the plate and they're like, we've got to do this ourselves. Right. I know a lot of people who were like, they completely, and back on the ending, I honestly think the only person who does not know that Bruce Wayne is alive is John Blake. Because all he gets is, here's some coordinates to the Batcave. Right. He could have written those way before he flew that bomb out. You know, like, Alfred, obviously, he gets the most closure because he actually sees him. Sure. And, it's not a dream, people. You got, Lucius gets, the Bruce Wayne fixed the autopilot 6 months ago. Gordon's is also less subtle. Oh, wait, whoa, what? There's a new bat signal on MCU, okay. But yeah, so I didn't have a huge issue with it.
But again, though, he finds the cave. Who's to say that he doesn't find his explanation in there?
Yeah, that's true. That's
true. I think of with the it closes it but leaves it open for your interpretation.
Yeah, like I just know like one or two of my friends are just like, when they found out, they're like, "Oh, I can't wait till the next Batman movie with that guy Gordon Levitt. It's going to be awesome." I'm like, there isn't going to be another Batman film. Christopher Nolan's done. What? Okay, I hate this movie now. I can't stand this thing. Why did he end it like that? I'm like, okay, not to sound like a film snob, but you obviously did not understand the theme of this movie. Anyone can be a hero. And case in point, I have actually compiled a clip from Begins, Dark Knight, and Dark Knight Rises to basically what I consider, illustrates this point across the whole trilogy. So here we go.
Are you coming back to Gotham for long, sir? As long as it takes. I'm going to show the people of Gotham their city doesn't belong to the criminals and the corrupt. People need dramatic examples to shake them out of apathy, and I can't do that as Bruce Wayne. As a man, I'm flesh and blood. I can be ignored, I can be destroyed, but as a symbol, I can be incorruptible. I can be everlasting.
What symbol?
Something elemental, something terrifying.
More copycats last night, Alfred, with guns.
Why don't you hide them and take the weekend off?
That wasn't exactly what I had in mind when I said I wanted to inspire people.
I know.
I never cared who you were. And you were right.
Shouldn't the people know the hero who saved them?
A hero can be anyone, even a man doing something as simple and reassuring as putting a coat around a young boy's shoulders to let him know the world hadn't ended.
So, yeah, I just compiled that real quick. That it's just like, Batman is a symbol. He can be anyone. Yes, he is Bruce Wayne, and I'm totally fine if it always is Bruce Wayne. Right. But in this context of the thematic context of this trilogy, I think it works.
Right. Well, and it's not like necessarily something that's just stuck to this trilogy. Yeah. Like Batman has been different people in the comics too. Like, yes, primarily Bruce Wayne. But after Nightfall, it's John Paul Valley, and then after there's a story fairly recently where Dick Grayson takes over the role, and he did it once before too, on Bruce Wayne's request while he stepped out for a little while. So it's true, of course he's Bruce Wayne, but it's not just something that, and again, more. Sure, they put their twist on it, but it definitely is bound in source material. Yeah. Yeah. So it's not just like something that Goyer and Chris and Jonathan Nolan threw out there just to see what stuck. Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely something that I think they maybe even realized is in the comics and can carry over into the film. So.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Anything else you want to add? I think
I can't think of anything else.
Yeah, 3 good films. Watch them.
They're amazing. Watch them.
Right, exactly. Well, cool. Well, we hope you enjoyed this podcast. And the next podcast we're going to have is we're going to talk about things that that could have happened, what could have been, and then what might be as we head past the Dark Knight trilogy and head into whatever happens next in the world of Batman in your cinema. So, anyway, thanks for listening. I'm Alex.
And I'm Erik.
And we will catch you next time.
But inconspicuously, through the window.
Now you want to get nuts? Come on! Let's get nuts.